Hey everybody, Luke here with 2,500 points Orcs and Goblins versus Lizardmen. My word, it's been a while since I put up a battle report. Let's see if I remember how to make these. I actually played a game recently and was going to make a battle report for that one. Sean, if you're watching, you know I was going to make a battle report. I took all the pictures, but my iPhone had like a piece of gunk that had gotten inside the lens. I had to actually have the phone replaced. So basically every picture had a big piece of fuzz in it and made all the pictures blurry. I didn't avoid making a battle report because you kicked my ass so unbelievably hard with the Skaven. It was because the pictures were so bad. Please believe that. But tonight, with my fancy new iPhone, I've got pictures of this battle. So I figured I'd share it. I've got Lizardmen here as my opponent, a guy in my local gaming group by the name of Tim. He's playing them. They're fantastically painted. They look great. And it was kind of fun because I think this will be the last game I play with them before they're redone, if rumor is to be believed. Should know in a couple weeks. So anyway, on to the game. He won deployment. He's got some scouting skinks that came in last on my flank on the left here. He's got some skinks in the upper left. On his line, he's got a unit of 3 salamanders and a bunch of handlers, a group of Saurus warriors there, 26 strong. He's got a Slan mage priest behind them, not in a unit, just sitting there on his own. Close enough for the 4-up lookouts. He's not on Lore Life, which is fantastic. He's rocking Light, which is also dangerous, but, you know, it's nice to see it. We'll see what that does for him. We've got the Engine of the Gods right next to him with a level 2 skink priest up there. That priest is on the Lower Heavens. Then he's got a Stegodon with the big old blowpipes up top. So 2 dinos right there, and a second group of warriors flanking the 2 dinos. Another 26 strong, same basic group. Then behind the forest, you can't really see him. He's got a group of, I think it's like 12 skinks and a priest in there, another level 2 of heavens. Finally, he's got some scouting skinks that come on to mess with my flank here. On my right side, I've got an Orc Boar Chariot, a Mangler Squig. I've got 40 Night Goblins with the level 1 Goblin Shaman in there, rocking Sneaky Stabbing. Got a Doom Diver behind him. Then I brought Grimgor to be my general because he's badass, because I like Black Orcs, and because he makes Black Orcs way, way better. So now they've got Hatred, extra weapon skill, and they're just more badass having that guy in there. So that's my leadership center right there. Next to them, I got the BSB sitting in the Savage Orc Shamans. Sitting in the Savage Orcs. And I have my level 4 Shaman in there with them, but he's not the general, obviously. And so that's a pretty decent block, about 29 strong. I think it's about 29 strong if I remember correctly, and I think I'm rocking about 26 strong in the Black Orcs. So definitely not hordes, but, you know, points are tight, especially with Grimgor. Then next to them, I've got a Goblin Chariot, a second Orc Chariot, and my Arachnarok, which I spent time painting up, so I have to play with. Here are just some nice pictures of his army because they look fantastic. You can see his deployment there. And we go to Lizardman turn 1. He starts moving up. He moves up his Chameleon Skinks into the woods to shoot at me, and his Scouting Skinks right next so he can shoot to my Chariot. Does the same thing on my left flank over here. And he moves up really aggressively, which is awesome. He's got a combat build. He wants to get into combat. He's got his Mage Priest behind him, and he thinks he can stick around a bit. And I'm liking that because I want to get right up on him. We go to Magic Phase. It's 11 dice to 6. He ends up channeling twice, which is why it's a pretty high difference between the 2 dice. He throws 7 dice right away at Barona's Time Warp, bubbling it, which will actually, from where he is going to get, I think, both dinosaurs and that left group of Saurus there, and rolls 1 shy of casting it, which is fantastic for me, because he ended up rolling 7 dice with that extra dice out of the ether. As far as I know, that's legal, but if it's not, let me know. I'm not quite too familiar with the Lizardmen rules. Anyway, he was 7 dice. He didn't quite make it, which shut down a good chunk of his Magic Phase, and now his land can't cast, which is awesome for me. Then he tries to cast Ice Shard Blizzard on the Doom Diver, and I was able to dispel that just fine. And he tries to cast Comet right in the middle between the Goblins and the Black Orcs, and just fails to cast and have enough dice. During shooting, the Skinks put a bunch of shots, multi-shots, poison, all that, on the Chariot. He lands 2 wounds, and I fail 2 armor saves. Does the same thing over on this side, but I make both my armor saves, and then I end up taking 2 wounds from long-range salamander breaths. And he's aiming them so if he rolls long enough, he can get both chariots, but he just was barely clipping the boar chariot every time, so it's only got 2 wounds on it. Just a picture of the end of the turn, and now let's see what the Orcs can do. Well, here's what we can do. We can charge like crazy. So in order to get the spider to be able to charge, actually first I just declared a charge on the spider with those skinks. I knew he had terror and he probably wouldn't make it. I was hoping he didn't, so he fled. But instead of just failing the charge, I figured, you know what? It's a long charge. We'll see if we can do it. I charged both chariots into his salamanders and make it. Now we end up redoing this. That's a hill. I thought hills were dangerous terrain, and anything for basically a chariot that isn't open terrain is dangerous terrain, except hills are literally not dangerous terrain. So we went back and forth, asked the guys in the shop, and the basic understanding was that even though we had killed the chariot here, a hill isn't dangerous terrain for chariots, so it'll come back eventually. That could be wrong. We went back and forth, but from what we can tell, there's only one type of hill that's dangerous terrain, and this is not it. So, other charges. I moved my dogs. Actually, there are no other charges on this side. I moved my dogs to block the dinosaur, and I decided to take the savages and the black orcs to the left and just focus on that group of warriors first. Break them real fast. Maybe you can pull the spider over there and then just go down his flank. When I do that, if you look on the right side, I've got a big hole between the night goblins, and I'll tell you why I moved them in a minute, but I got a big hole right there between the black orcs and his dinosaur, if it makes a decent charge, can get into my flank. And I realized that after I move, because you can see here, I was really preoccupied with releasing the fanatics, and I shouldn't have been. I made a mistake here. So the first thing that happened on the right, you can't really see it. My chariot says, screw it, charges into the woods, doesn't fail dangerous terrain, and now I'm into the skinks. Probably just going to blow them up in the impact hits and then chase them down. Then my mangler goes up, doesn't quite get there, but he's sitting right in front of the warriors. So now the warriors are going to have to deal with him or walk around him. That's exactly where I want him. And I was like, well, let's add some more pain. I kind of got distracted, and I walked straight forward to release the fanatics. One of them went through the dinosaur. You can see right there, the Stegodon, did 2 wounds, one to the crew, one to the dino. It's all good. The other one's sitting and blocking the warriors, which is also good. But like I said, now I've got this big hole here where his dinosaur can just probably charge right in. It might not be able to actually... No, it can, because it can go... I was thinking it might not be able to move so close to the warriors, but yeah, it has normal charging. Forget I said that. So anyway, I realized I got a big problem here, and I'm going to try to correct it in the magic phase. So we go to the magic phase. It's 8 versus 4. First thing I do is try to cast Sneaky Stabbing on 2 dice. It goes off. I want to try to steal dice from him, and I throw Sneaky Stabbing on... Who the hell did I cast it on? Probably the Black Orcs, I think. He goes to dispel it and decides to use the Cube of Darkness, which is basically, if you're not familiar with it, it's a dispel scroll. It automatically dispels it, but and you roll a die. If it's a 4, 5, or 6, it ends the magic phase. He rolls a 3, so thank God I get to keep casting. That was really good for me. So now I've got 6 dice left. I throw 3 dice at Here We Go because I figure that's going to be the scary thing for him. If all my orcs are re-rolling to hit. And it drew all his dispel dice. It did what I wanted. I think he didn't realize, and I had said this before, but the Black Orcs already have hatred, so it was kind of just a feint to get him to pull those dice out. And then now with my last 3 dice, I cast Hand of Gork, and even though I only rolled 5 on the distance, it was more than enough to block up that hole. So now the dinosaur can't really, maybe it can get to the Black Orcs, but not easily. So I feel pretty good about that. Good magic phase. The Doom Diver does like 5 hits, and 1 of them goes on the crew and kills it, and the 4 that go on the dinosaur all fail the wound. Over here, this is where we realize the dangerous terrain. The guys in the club were talking about it. It's not dangerous terrain. We ruled because a hill isn't, so the chariot gets to magically come back, and they both did like a ton of impact hits. Then we got to combat, did a couple more. I think there was only 1 Stegodon left. Salamander left, and it broke, and we overran and got into the skinks handily, and ran the salamander down. So that was fantastic for us. Over here, I win combat on the skinks. I restrain pursuit, luckily, with a clutch roll. So now I'm threatening his flank if he wants to come up. I'm technically in his front here, is what it looks like, but if he comes forward, I'm probably going to be in his flank, and I'll just let those skinks go. Just an end of turn shot showing that the orcs are coming. And here's a picture just to show what he's got to deal with on his main line here. So he's got a fanatic right in front. blocking the warriors, then a mangler. Then he's got to get through night goblins, and there's not 1,000 of them, but there's a decent number, 40 some with nets. And then he's got a mangler, or I'm sorry, a fanatic behind him. So this whole side of my flank is going to go. I don't care about it, but I'm tying up a good chunk of his points and making him make some choices. Do I get to come through him and then declare the charges I want, or does he have to walk on some of these? So he chooses to walk on some of these. It's Lizardman turn 2. He moves and decides just to walk on the Fanatic alone, and I end up rolling 6 wounds, which is great, on the 2d6 and take off the back rank of warriors. Otherwise, he charges the dinosaur just to get rid of the wolves that I had blocked in there. No one else is really moving up or charging. He's just going to weather the storm and get rid of the chaff. We go into magic, and the burning alignment goes off from the Engine of the Gods. Now, he can choose something to do with the Engine of the Gods every magic phase. He chooses this thing. He rolls 2d6, and that's the amount of inches it pulses out, kind of like a Mortis engine, except it only hurts bad guys. Well, his foes, I should say. He rolls a 10 on the distance, so it nukes the fanatic behind him, puts only 1 wound on the mangler, which is great. I think it's like d6 wounds or something, so I got lucky with 1 wound on the mangler. Only 2 wounds on the goblins, and 1 black orc dies. But he's wanting this. He needs to be able to put as many wounds on that mangler as he can during shooting and magic. During the rest, basically the next thing he does is try to 7 dice again Barona's Time Warp, and he meets the casting value but does not irresistible force, and I burn my Dispel Scroll on it. So now I'm sitting pretty. He has 3 dice, I have 4. I don't have to worry about it, and I got to use my Dispel Scroll before my Night Goblin died, which doesn't always happen for me. He throws 3 dice at Net Bamatok and puts it on the goblins and gets irresistible force on all 3 die. 6 is on all 3 die, actually. And rolls to see what the result is. It's a 12, so his wizard's going to lose levels, D3 levels, and forget spells appropriately. And he uses a Cupped Hands, does not roll a 1. I think that's the first time the Cupped Hands has ever been used against me and not rolled a 1. I think I've been like 3 or 4 times where it's just never hit me. But my Savage Orc Shaman has to eat it. We roll the D3, and I lose 3 levels. Basically end up losing Edbutt, Here We Go, and Hand of Gork. So I only have Gaze left, and he's down to a level 1s. Now all I have is 2 level 1s. But I'm feeling pretty good about combat, so that's how I'm going to win this game. During shooting, the big blowpipes on the Stegodon throw out 14 shots, and sadly, he sunk 2. Only 2, but that was all he needed. And so my Mangler is dead. Over here, his skinks just moved up, and we're gonna mess with the Doom Diver. I'm not worried about him. I'm even gonna take shots at him. They've got to hit toughness 7. Of course, they got poison, but big deal. It's just a Doom Diver. It's not really worth it. The Dino wipes out the wolves, as you would expect, and I wipe out the skinks big time. Just slam into him, do a bunch of impact hits, and kill him down to a man, and then reform. And that was on his turn, so now I've got some long charges, but hopefully I can get into the fight on my turn. So we go to Orcs turn 2, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. Everybody but the goblins on the board. Everyone but the goblins and the Doom Diver are charging. So I'm taking the Wolf Chariot and the Orc Chariot on the left with the Spider. The Spider's going to need to roll a 10 on Swift Stride to get in. They're all going into the flank. The Savages are going to go in the front of those warriors, and I decided to put my Black Orcs into the Engine of the Gods. This way, I'll resolve the combat to the left first. If I really win and break them, then I can help fight the Engine of the Gods. But hey, these are Black Orcs with Grimgore. Choppa's first round. I'm going to go through that monster. I'm not even worried about it. I also take the Chariot that's in the woods on the right. Dangerous terrain be damned. I'm going into the flank of the warriors. I'll do some damage. I probably won't break them, but I will probably tie them up, and he's going to have to reform to face me. And then I can maybe come in on the... maybe later come in with the Night Goblins or just be a pest. So I'm liking that. After charges resolve, the only ones that fail are the Savages. They don't want to get in combat and only roll like a 2 or something crappy. But I make all the long charges with both Chariots and the Arachnarok in the flank. Black Orcs are into the front. And I just move my Goblins, as you can see there. They power through the strength check on the Net of Amatok and just park 1 inch in front of the dinosaur. Going to have to redirect it a bit. And that's awesome. And on the right flank here, you can see the chariots made it in, so I'm tying up those warriors so he can't just come in on me. During Magic, we go to 9, it's 9 dice to 5, so I've got a pretty decent phase, but I only have 2 level 1 casters. We both look, and the only thing that matters here is getting sneaky stabbing off on those guys that are in the flank, but I can't quite reach, unfortunately. Can't cast sneaky stabbing on the spider, it's too far out. It doesn't really make sense to put it on the black orcs, because they don't have to worry about armor piercing. So I throw like 5 or 6 dice at trying to cast it on the chariot, so its components on top of the chariot can reroll its misses, and he was able to dispel it. Then I failed to cast Gaze of Mork from my Shaman. It wouldn't really done much anyway. The Doom Diver comes swinging over the top and takes off the last crew member up top. I don't know if it's the last one or if there's one left. One of the two. I'm taking off crew. During close combat, I do like 9 wounds from impact hits, and he can't parry those because I'm in his flank. So that ended up being awesome. Do a whole bunch of attacks. Killed a bunch of them, broke them, and caught them, and overran. And at that time, the Wolf Chariot, we had gotten into we had killed so many, the Wolf Chariot was out of combat. The Boar Chariot on the overrun did not make it into either the Slan or the Dinosaur, but the Arachnarok did. So we go to that combat. Now I'm all ready. I got a Terror Causer in there, all that good stuff, and just cream him. In fact, Grimgor does 5 of the 6 wounds on his own. Does always strike first, like strength 8 or strength 7, whatever he is with his choppas and his super sword. Then the Arachnarok, just to sink it in, lands a Venom Surge multi-wounder on it, even though it only had 1 wound left, just pummels the thing to pieces. I'm going to, at this point, the game's over on turn 2, the bottom of turn 2. But I would overrun those Black Orcs, and if I got lucky, maybe get into the Slan. Even if I didn't, he's going to have to start running. And on the Chariot, does 2 impact hits, 2 wounds on the impact hits when it comes in. I think I did a couple more at the end of the game, but it didn't break, so it just stuck there. And that's it. That's the game. This is the end of the game shot. It was very fast and super decisive on my end. It was pretty fun for me, at least. So, it was fun. Nicely painted army. Fun to play the Lizardmen. I got really lucky with the magic phase, being able to shut one down and one just not resolving into anything. And I think with the type of army I had and the deployment, I was able to just tie up what I wanted. Got really lucky with some long charges and getting the chariots and the Arachnarok into the flank. And then he wanted to come meet me, and I desperately wanted to meet him, and I just won. So it was a great game. Fun to play, and thanks for watching.